Hello, everyone, and welcome to the EFMD Global Career Affairs powered by Hired. We are so glad that you are here with us for this webinar. And I'm Bahar from Hired, and I will be co hosting this session with you. Today's session is about prioritization, one of the most critical skills for succeeding in fast-paced work environment. And of course, it is also applicable for the uh, life as well in general. We are excited to have Ben, Vice President of Client Service at AlphaSights, leading the session, and he will be dive into how to prioritize tasks effectively and stay focused under the pressure and deliver great results. We also have Olivia joining us as well, recruiter at AlphaSight, who will share current opportunities as a company and tips on what they look for in top candidates. So it is going to be an insightful and practical session. So feel free to take notes and ask your questions in the chat and make out of this opportunity. So without any ado, Ben, over to you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Bahar, and thanks for having us today here at Hired with the event. Today we'll be focusing in on prioritization in the workplace, specifically at AlphaSights. Also have it open up for a Q&A, followed prior to that we'll run through AlphaSights, what we do as a company, go through the associate position, and then of course finishing off with next steps and what we look for within our candidates. Cool. So to start off with, my name is Olivia. I'm part of the talent acquisition side, as Bahar very kindly mentioned. I've been working at AlphaSights for the past 3 years, primarily looking for top talent for not only entry-level associate position, but also for insight days, internships, and placement opportunities for those pre-graduation opportunities.
Perfect. And nice to meet you all. My name is Ben. I've been at AlphaSights for just under 7 years now. From the UK, spent a decent time living in Southwest France growing up, and languages became a big part of what I enjoyed and wanted to study. So I did an undergrad in French and Spanish at the Uni of Oxford, and then sort of upon graduating, came into the AlphaSights role in the summer of 2018 onto our private equity team. Did 2 years as an associate, 3 years as a manager, and I'm now sort of halfway through my VP mandate, looking after one of the sort of biggest teams in our private equity sector here in the London office. And excited to give you a little bit more context as to what we do as a business and the opportunities that we have at hand.
Perfect. So as mentioned, we'll be going through overview into AlphaSights, the business, then into the associate position within the client service team. Then we'll open up the floor for a Q&A on prioritization and what that looks like in AlphaSights. And then we'll go into talking about the next steps and our opportunities. I'll hand over to you, Ben.
Brilliant, thank you. So nice. So perhaps even ahead of joining the session today, a lot of yourselves will have been asking yourselves, okay, what's AlphaSights? What do they do? How do they fit in? Or more broadly, when you're looking to get any answers on whatever it might be, the first place you're probably going to go to is Google online. Try and use online resources to try and get up to speed on whatever context you need. So if you were going to AlphaSights and looking to learn a little bit more, you could, as I say, go to ChatGPT, to Google, and hopefully you'd be able to find some feedback and some key company information about that particular business. But the reality is that when things get a little bit more critical, a little bit busier in your day-to-day, maybe you're then applying to AlphaSights and you're trying to land a job. One of the key things you're going to be trying to understand is, how do I sort of differentiate myself? How do I get information that other people don't have? And that's probably going to come through actually speaking to people who are at the company, used to work there, know the market, maybe some key competitors of ours, to try and get a better understanding of the role, what's going to make you stand out, and how you can present yourself in the best possible light. And I guess, so historically you have the likes of Google, who are trying to, organize the world's information. And effectively what AlphaSights is trying to achieve is to give investors and key decision makers in the world economy the ability to be able to tap into industry expertise, people who have 10, 20, 30 years of experience in consumer, healthcare, tech, whatever it might be, to make better and more informed investment decisions, or product management decisions, or M&A decisions, for example. And that really comes from unlocking the information in people's brains on demand, through humans, rather than anything you're able to find online. Now, that's not to discredit, great McKinsey or Reuters or reports that might exist online. There are brilliant online resources to understand markets better. But the reality is that there is a limiting factor and a level playing field in terms of the information that can be accessed. And that's where not only AlphaSights, but the sort of broader expert network market has really kicked on in the last few years and given, as I say, leading investors a real edge in terms of their investment sort of criteria and theses going forwards. So as far as, our mission is concerned, is really around unlocking human knowledge and powering success. We have a huge range of different clients that we work with, all of whom come to us with very, very varied sort of questions across deal processes, across different sectors. And we want to very much be that middleman, that facilitator, the white glove service in the market to help those decisions be made as accurately and as quickly as possible. So if you think about who we work with, there are probably, as I say, 4 main client types. So as I mentioned, private equity is the first. That's the team that I've been on for the last 7 years or so. And again, we work with pretty much every single one of the, let's say, big names, the global sort of mega funds that are investing billions of pounds, euros, dollars over the course of every single year. But obviously, as we've sort of built out a global team in private equity of nearly over sort of 500 professionals now at AlphaSights, we're also serving a very big population of sort of VC and growth funds as more and more investors look to invest in potentially high risk but early opportunity assets, as well as working with middle market funds. And we're now sort of a global 9-office team on private equity and make the biggest sort of percentage of our overall revenue in terms of the clients that we serve as well. Now, if you think about our capital markets team, obviously there's a huge amount of volatility in the markets at the moment. Hedge fund managers, stocks and shares markets are going up, down with the Trump tariffs, and they're all asking themselves how to invest their money, what to do. And, a big part of our sort of revenue comes through working with these hedge funds globally who are, as I say, managing trillions of dollars of assets globally. And if you think about the way that they work, whilst a private equity investor may, have slightly longer timeline sort of research, where they can look to scope and eye up a business over the course of a number of months or even years before deciding whether to buy or sell. In the hedge fund markets, that time, that speed, and the prioritization that we'll talk about a little bit later is all the more crucial in terms of the need to access those insights very, very quickly. Now, our consulting markets, again, you can think about the sort of 3 MBB sort of leading consultancies that we work with, but we have a whole host of different sort of strategic and commercial due diligence providers that we work with. Their needs, again, will vary a little bit, where they're probably, doing projects either for, as a big corporates or private equity funds themselves, and they will need to digest perhaps, 30, 40, 50 different expert insights over the course of a couple of weeks on a real sort of sprint due diligence. So our ability to not only find sort of very sort of niche, sort of bespoke information, but also be able to provide that on volume and at speed is critical to be competitive in that market that is hotly contested given the sort of the budgets and the opportunities within that space. So consulting, again, picking up on the good work that we do with our private equity clients, and we've built a relationship in that space too. And then finally, we have our corporate segment. So again, whilst many professionals who'd be working at a Fortune 500 company would probably consider themselves experts in Colgate toothpaste or Toshiba tech, for example, the reality is that even those people who have years of experience in a particular market may have gaps in their information and understanding, whether that's into launching a new product, moving into a new geography, penetrating the South American or Asian markets, or whatever it might be. And we can create a really bespoke and sort of tailored service to help them gather the insights and very, very specific intelligence they need to make better business decisions. And again, that's a very, very big part of our growing business as we onboard more and more corporates who are looking for this kind of insights as well. Perfect. So if we think about the sort of growth trajectory and the history of AlphaSights, we were founded back in 2008 by Max and Andrew, our 2 co-founders and co-CEOs. And, I think we're really glad to see that they're both very much at the helm and, driving standards within the business. We're a fully privately owned, privately backed business that is, self-sufficient in that regard. And we've been able to be on an amazing sort of growth trajectory and curve, as you can see. Over the course of the years, we've developed 9 offices, with Tokyo having been the sort of most recent opening that we had. And I think now we really feel that we have, a strong base, strong culture within all of the different sort of financial hubs in the world, being able to provide our clients with sort of 24-hour service, not only in terms of client service, but also having the sort of the legal and compliance infrastructures as well to help in that regard. And obviously the headcount, as you can see, has sort of scaled very, very quickly in that time. The reality is now both having welcomed our January and April classes, we're probably nearing that sort of 2,000 employee mark now, and really have sort of established ourselves as the number one player in the global market for these sorts of services. So I think, again, in the short sort of 7 years that I've spent in here, we've seen a huge amount of change, but I think, and technological advancements, but with Max and Andrew at the helm, very much sort of maintaining the culture and the real sort of like feel and startup sort of growth trajectory that we've all prided ourselves on previously as well, and very excited for the years to come. Brilliant. So if we think about the associate role, what does that actually look like? We put together a little video, perhaps, to give you a little bit of insights, and I'll complement that afterwards.
Playing competitive sports while growing up in Germany and the US taught me to bring my A game to whatever I do. I wanted to start my career in a role where hard work and delivering results were rewarded. I knew I found my match when I joined AlphaSights. My workday starts on my commute, checking client emails. Once I'm in the office, we kick things off with a team meeting. I work on multiple client projects with tight deadlines and priorities constantly changing. I really have to be on top of my game with multitasking. This is Kai from AlphaSights here. How are you doing? Hey Emily, this is Kai at AlphaSights. Kai from AlphaSights here. I spend a lot of the day on the phone speaking to senior executives whose expert insights help my clients make more informed business decisions. Once I have found the best experts, I share a shortlist with my client and get the project call scheduled. I work to my clients' deadlines, which means keeping an eye on my projects also after office hours. Does success come easily here? No. It takes resilience, grit, and doing ordinary things extraordinarily well. Looking forward to working together on this project. But I love taking ownership, owning my business skills, and delivering results. I'm Kai, and what excites me the most? Taking charge of my career and achieving success for my clients and myself.
Super. Thank you to the wonderful Kai. Amanda on my team, so it's always good to see him in the spotlight. But awesome. Hopefully that's given you a little bit of a flavor for the business, the pace and the dynamics of the London office at least. But I think if we think about the associate role and where you spend your time and what you're sort of critically doing in the day-to-day, you can think of this as a really sort of very strongly people-centric role. As an associate within the business, you are working, day in, day out between experts and clients, trying to match their needs, find the right people to answer their questions. That means a lot of outreach, a lot of time on the phone, a lot of time sort of building trust, networking, negotiating, and trying to drive commercial results for your clients on a rolling basis. I think, equally, as you hopefully saw, it's quite a collaborative environment within the office. So not only are you in touch with those two key stakeholders, but you've also got a number of colleagues that you need to manage expectations with, project leads, managers you work very closely together with as well. So what we're looking for at AlphaSights really is people who love communicating, love being in touch with people, get a huge amount of energy from those interactions and some of the complications and struggles that can come with that of working with human beings as well. But the opportunity that you get is that exposure to experts of, as I say, 10, 20, 30 years of experience who are very, very qualified within a certain sector, and having to come across as credible, a good, smooth communicator, someone who's trustworthy, and then being able to meet some of the high demands and expectations that our clients do have, who work very long hours in very sort of high pressure sort of environments, and being able to read between the lines and give them a really seamless white glove service, as I mentioned earlier. So again, communication and exposure to high quality stakeholders is one of the key promises that AlphaSights offers. Now, again, difficult to always sort of represent directly what a typical day could look like at AlphaSights, but we'll try and give this a go. So I guess in a particular instance, let's say you're in the middle of your day, 4:05 in the afternoon, and you could get a new project. You could be in the middle of being on the phone with a great former CEO of a chemicals company, but in your inbox could land a new project via your manager. And obviously understanding that project and getting to that as quickly as possible is key, because the speed at which we turn around our first deliverables to our client is going to determine whether we make any initial sales compared to maybe some of our competitors. So already you're having to readjust what you're doing. And as you can see, the brief would come in and your role is to try and find things as quickly as possible. So your first step would be go into our sort of individual database within AlphaSights to try and find some potential experts that might fit that criteria. So let's say we were looking at, I know we had a project this week on veterinary clinics, for example, and equine clinics in particular, we would then have to go in and see if we can find any veterinary clinic sort of like owners, people who have worked in that business, maybe who have bought a number of clinics over the last few years, and try and screen those experts and match it to the different questions that our clients are looking to have answered, either via phone, via email. And the speed at which we're trying to do that, as you can see in the graph, would be ideally within 15 minutes. We're going back to our clients already with a recommended list of experts who could potentially be ready to help. Now, as you can imagine, if we're looking into the German market for equine clinics, the likelihood of us having the perfect expert on our book, someone we've worked with already, could be relatively slim. So it's also incredibly important. This is why we look to hire motivated, talented, intelligent people, is to then be able to go outside of our network and sort of what we call custom recruit these sorts of experts who will be able to help build our pool of knowledge and network within that kind of market. And even within a couple of hours, potentially even have new experts outside of our database that we can also recommend to the client. So from that first sort of screening list, our clients will then be able to review the kind of profiles that they have in front of them and make some decisions around whether they would want to eventually book some calls. So we have that initial delivery, as I explained, potentially within 20 minutes or so. We're then going to be looking to try and provide availabilities for that client to get that call in the diary as quickly as possible. As you can imagine, a lot of the experts that we work with are in full-time employment. They will have meetings, commitments, travel, going back to family, picking up kids from school, and you have to try and find gaps and persuade them as to why they should take their time to speak to our client at very short notice and manage that whole process to eventually get those calls in the diary and hopefully drive that deliverable for the client. Now, let's imagine, I don't suppose many of you necessarily have a huge amount of exposure to the equine clinic market. So if you were to be on that call and put yourself in the shoes of the client, you would probably have just as many questions as learnings as you did coming out of that call. And maybe you learn about new technologies, new sort of market trends that you hadn't previously considered. So this redelivery sort of concept is a really important piece after that. So our clients are constantly on an evolution of understanding a market and will have new requirements and new experts they need to fill those gaps. So not only is it understanding the initial brief, but then adapting your research and evolving that process along with your client requirements to hopefully then work towards a project wrap up at the end of this, so that your client get the results they need over the long run, and you've driven a great commercial outcome for AlphaSights as a business as well. So not many projects will necessarily wrap up in the space of 2 hours, but that hopefully gives, I guess, a bit of an insight as to how quickly things can move. If you look at my sort of typical workflow with my clients, they can be, as I say, tracking businesses for over a year, whereby we're continually trying to chip away and find new expertise over a year's process. And we also have projects that will last sub 24 hours when they're on a big sprint. So again, being adaptable and really understanding your client's needs is going to differentiate how effectively you spend your time. Brilliant. So if you think about a typical business in professional services, whether that's consulting, a number of different corporates, when you come into the business, you are obviously there to do a lot of the legwork. You're preparing materials, you are creating deliverables, whether that could be Excel, PowerPoint, doing a lot of the grunt work, and then passing that on to an engagement manager, a potential principal or director that will be likely be holding the client relationship, and you'll generally be held relatively at arm's length, and you have to wait quite a long time to get that kind of exposure, recognition, reward for some of the work that you do. That's not to say they're fantastic, landing points and great foundations to build your career from, but AlphaSights has tried to sort of flip that model on its head somewhat, whereby, as you've hopefully already gleaned, when you come into the associate role, your day-to-day really is spent on the phone with experts, industry leaders, as well as in touch with our clients directly, whereby you're given that early exposure to be able to sort of really sink your teeth into driving high quality service, learning by doing, learning by failing quite often, but making sure that you're sort of progressing and growing as a professional. And as you then grow into manager and sort of VP positions, you're able to take some of those relationships with you and scale with them through their careers and really build your network. Now, I myself, now as a vice president, having gone through those echelons, don't necessarily even have any direct project touch points. All the projects come in via my associates and via my managers, and my role and the manager's roles is very much to help create an environment whereby those teams can effectively sort of deliver to the best of their abilities. We give them training curriculums, we shadow, we audit, we help give them feedback and work closely and in the most sort of efficient way possible. And we obviously have sort of lofty commercial targets, but we really do want to give that responsibility early in the trust in the people that are fundamentally creating the product, because, whilst we do have a brilliant platform, brilliant tech, and a lot of amazing capabilities there, our people and the experts that we recruit are our product. And we believe that the people recruiting those experts and at the front line of those projects should be the ones in front of the clients and leading those touch points as well. So again, a real investment into the people that we have within the business there.
Cool, perfect. So now I know there's been a few questions popping on through in the chat, but yeah, we'll open up the floor to any other questions coming through. I think I saw one previously, one for you, Ben. How do you manage over-demanding clients?
How do we manage over-demanding clients? The first thing is recognizing, spotting smoke and trying to recognize clients that are demanding and working out whether their demands are reasonable and really and realistic in terms of our ability to deliver on them. I think a lot of the time, again, our clients will be, let's say, again, looking into a very niche HR software business in France, for example, and they say, hey, can you find us 10 experts on this particular market? The reality is, if you look at the size of the business, the size of the market, it's probably not realistic to find 10 high quality former employees of that business. So being able to very quickly set expectations around what they can expect and what they can't, and keep them really in the loop as to what you're doing every step of the way is a really critical thing in terms of managing the success of that project. I think if you look at businesses that we particularly enjoy using, everyone loves using Amazon on the whole, right? And that's not just because they have an amazing array of products that you can just access, but it's the seamlessness and the ease at which you can actually access that. The moment you buy something, you're given an exact window as to how long it's going to take to get to your house. You're given an update when it leaves the depot, when it arrives at your local courier, as well as an estimated timeline within up to potentially an hour as to when that's going to arrive at your home. And every step of the way as a customer, you're happy with that because you know what's going to happen. You become very unhappy very quickly if for whatever reason those expectations aren't met, or you don't hear anything for a couple of days and something lands on your doorstep when you're not at home and your neighbor takes it. So I think it's all about that clear communication and making sure they know what you're doing at all times, and how you're progressing against their goals.
Perfect. And just another question. Obviously, within AlphaSights, associates are managing multiple projects at one given time. How do you prioritize all these projects from 8 to 15 on the go? How do associates work through this workload?
Yeah, so I guess there's probably structural sort of pieces that we implement to try and help with that. Our managers and teams will have sort of a morning, afternoon, and sort of end of day board where they'll catch up with their trainers and their manager to go through all of the live projects that they're working on, and not only sort of think about, okay, what are the actionable tasks that I need to do and how am I progressing against those, but crucially, what are the actual end results and deliverables that I need to create? So you may have a high priority project, but what does that mean in terms of what I need to do? So we have a lot of structure and sort of support to help people manage their time and work out, one, what is going to be the most sort of commercial and lucrative sort of opportunities. I think, again, we are a business that's set by KPIs and targets and a performance environment. So it's all very well putting in a lot of hard work and a lot of sort of input, but it's really about the output and what clients see that matters. So I think trying to work out, again, sticking to structures and recognizing, okay, controlling the things that you're in control of and being accepting of the things that you can't, and then working really hard with your teams to make sure that you know exactly how much time you need to put in, what's feasible, and then having someone who's been, again, on the ropes in the business for a couple of years who can guide you and say what's realistic and not, and whether they shield you from a couple of new projects and whether you actually have capacity to be able to stretch yourself a little bit more.
Perfect. And as someone who's gone through the associate role, through to manager, through to vice president, do you have any advice on, I don't know, to anyone going into any kind of career, how to prioritize?
Yeah, I think generally speaking, like a bias for action is something that we look for at AlphaSights, and more broadly is something that I can't sort of emphasize enough. So we have, as I say, things that will land in our inbox, in our to-do list, like more, constantly throughout the day, and you're always in the middle of doing something. But the reality is, the sooner that you actually tackle that thing and approach it, or at least get the wheels moving with it, the quicker it will be resolved. I find myself with things, if I don't read an email within an hour, or I don't action something very quickly and I read it and I mute it, every hour that passes, it probably doubles in terms of the likelihood of me getting it done. So being able to have a really good sort of like pulse of what's coming in and what needs to be actioned quickly, but then also, again, a bit of a sort of like understanding as to what needs to be done now and what's close to, I guess, like what we call a credit or to commercial revenue, because those are always going to be the most important things, and making sure that, client comms and clients always come first, and then internal things can maybe like follow a little bit sort of behind that. I think the other thing is not losing sight of the bigger projects, etc. A lot of you, I imagine, at university or sort of starting your first jobs, and it's very easy to always be obsessed with the quick wins, the things that need to happen now, and lose sight of the longer term projects that actually then really build up, and you have to sprint at the last minute because you haven't built your slides or done a lot of the additional research. So my biggest advice is like breaking those down into really sort of bite-sized chunks where I have 15 minutes in a day just to keep progressing on some of those bigger things, so they don't build up to enormous tasks that don't seem feasible over the course of a fortnight or 3 weeks or whatever it might be.
Nice. Okay, perfect. And I think those were a majority of the questions that were relevant. Here, there was also one talking about, hi Lewis from Portugal. Do you have business here, and is it possible to work remotely?
Good question. So we have Portuguese clients and we support a number of Portuguese investments, but we don't have a Portuguese office. So again, we do hire Spanish, Portuguese speakers, but that's very much for our London office. We have, London is our biggest sort of HQ. Within Europe, we have a small Hamburg office as well, which is super international here in London. And I think the founders are firmly of the belief that we want people to be in the office as much as possible, learning from one another. There's a great sort of atmosphere and energy that goes around the office. And with any sort of like sales oriented sort of like client service role, the ability to, I guess, like observe people, shadow people, learn from what you're hearing on the desk, and sort of buy into that overall energy and the sort of effectiveness of communication is a really big thing. So we do have work from home sort of like policies and flexibilities baked into our contracts, but the idea is that we're in London and we're working as a team together in person ideally.
Great. And one other question here just popped through. Thank you for the insightful response. My follow-up question is, how does your GPT work? Is it similar to chat?
Good question. So we have we're leveraging our AI in a number of different ways. I think we both in terms of what our clients can use this for, and then secondly what we do internally. So generally speaking, we try and avoid using ChatGPT whatsoever because we can't control. If you think about the sensitive information that we're getting from our clients, we can't just go and put that into ChatGPT that could end up in anyone's hands fundamentally. So all of the information we safeguard and use with internal AI tools to be able to create good research plans, understand value chains, find competitors. We call it delivery GPT, I guess, internally. And then we also have, as I say, AI summarization tools and some language models which clients can leverage in terms of sort of processing and breaking down the insights that they glean from working with AlphaSights as well. So I think we very much look at AI as friend rather than foe, because it really frees up a lot of time and helps people really engage with the most sort of brain intensive activities that we can to build really highly effective and productive teams.
Nice. And one question here, it seems like new employees get a lot of responsibility early on. What's the onboarding process like to feel comfortable with this?
Yeah, the onboarding process is very, very thorough. And again, I think we do have a real ethos in terms of giving people responsibility early and being acceptant that people will make mistakes and learn from it, etc. So we do have a very robust sort of one first week onboarding that you do with all of your peers, all the new joiners in your class, so you can build relationships with them, get an early foundation of what does good look like at AlphaSights, really getting a basis of how to begin outreach, thinking about the compliance considerations within the role, everything that any employee would need to recognize. But then the rest of the onboarding process fundamentally is done on desk. You'll be given a trainer and a manager who are going to be overseeing your development and onboarding you into the team. And that over the first sort of 6 months gives you weekly sort of touch points, development and training catch-ups, as well as a lot of on-desk shadowing and sort of hand-holding in terms of helping you get up to speed and give you feedback throughout. But the reality is that we expect and hope that people can get to sort of fully functional and really working on a high volume of projects within the first sort of 2 to 3 months of being within the business. And again, think that that's, we've seen it time and again that people are able to meet those standards and really raise their game to do so. So whilst again, it's, high expectations, it's very much a high support environment. And I think we'll touch on it later, but given that our progression model means that we only hire people coming into these entry-level roles, our growth and scaling as a company is dependent on training people and really investing in their development so that they don't only come as an associate for a couple of years, but kick on to go into manager and VP roles and sort of really grow with AlphaSights as we progress.
Great. Those were all the questions that we saw come through. Perfect. Thanks, everyone, for that. We'll shoot back to the presentation, and then if there are any follow-up questions, we'll have time towards the end. Perfect. Cool. Back to it. Perfect. So opening up now to the next steps. First of all, I guess why join AlphaSights? I mean, we briefly touched on this. You are obviously, as an associate, you'll get more expert project client-facing ownership than potentially other entry-level positions. This means that you will receive that immediate user project and frontline commercial responsibility. And we supplement that level of ownership and autonomy with, as Ben mentioned previously, on the desk, and also that one-to-one trainer sessions to ensure that you are confident to hit the ground running and feel empowered to develop your best practices and succeed within those learning curves. Some of our team here have also made some comments. You're trusted with a real project from day one, also touching on additionally the metrics that you are obviously working towards, excelling in that. Perfect. And then, the second point here, achievement. Working on the client service teams, you'll learn how to interact confidently with top tier clients and senior executives. We mentioned who our clients are previously. 3 of the top 3 consultancy firms, 18 out of the top 20 private equity firms. You're getting that interaction. Also, by facing challenges head on, you're constantly exposing yourself to high pressure and of course, high impact situations. Following that, you'll achieve measurable success for your clients and yourself, allowing you to build a track record of achievement. And also some more quotes there. And then thirdly, intense on-the-job training will help you develop highly transferable commercial and, of course, managerial skills and prepare you to take on direct reports after 24 to 30 months. As Ben touched on, we only promote from within. So associates through to managers, through to VPs have all gone through the full cycle. In addition to the, progression here, we also offer you support to gain reputable and external qualifications during your time with us. Of course, more information on the specifics surrounding those spoken to you during the New Joiner Academy once you join the firm. 100% of your commercial leadership team, as I said, have started as associates. We really want to see people push through those ranks, and our associates follow that accelerated trajectory to that commercial leadership, running multi-million-dollar books of business, just like Ben, after pretty much 5 years in the role. So we, of course, want our associates to thrive in the position here at AlphaSights. So it's important to check if this is the right fit for you. The client service role is obviously well situated to individuals who are looking for client-facing, metric-focused, commercially oriented, high-impact and fast progressing opportunities. Of course, this sounds very straightforward, but it is certainly not what everyone is looking for in a job career. So if these boxes are ticked for you, and do consider applying to our positions. I guess to get even more specific here, touching on to the application process, it is a 5-step process. The first, simply that you simply submit your application onto our website. From there, there'll be someone on the talent acquisition team will review your application, and then from there you'll be invited to generally a screening of sorts, whether that's a phone call or through likes of a video, sending a video through the recruiter. Then you go into 3 more formal interviews. So the first is a behaviour round. You're speaking with another member from the talent acquisition team. They're really looking into your experiences, trying to find evidence that this is, of course, the right fit for you. If that's all successful, you'll be moving into a case study round where essentially you're going through a typical project at AlphaSights. It is a competency-based or a skill-based round. So yeah, really tackling that. And then, of course, you'll go into a final round with the vice president, with the likes of Ben, really double-checking this is the right fit for you, as well as, of course, the right fit for AlphaSights. At the end of the day, this is the start of your career. We want to make sure that you're investing in what we offer aligns. So that's why we have that final step there. And then the last sixth step there, the offer, the most exciting, in my opinion. Cool. So a few of our opportunities here that are pre-graduation, so slightly different to the full-time role. For penultimate year students, these all apply. So Insight Days we host in our London office, 2 days event. You're going through different sessions, you're working with managers, our associates, also our vice presidents, gaining a real understanding of not only the role, but also the culture that we have here. There's also an assessment on the second day, and if you're successful in that, you could be securing a final round interview, and obviously a position a year before you even graduate. Then, of course, we have an internship. Again, this is for penultimate year students. It's a 6-month opportunity within our Hamburg office, so the requirement to speak German is essential. Again, you're gaining that insight into the company. You're very much a valued member of the client service team. And of course, there is the opportunity to return once you have finished your studies. And then similarly, the placement opportunity. I think this is UK specific for those doing sandwich courses. You can work with the team for 12 months. Again, being a very integral and valued member of any team you're part of, gaining those skills and that commercial awareness. And then, of course, if you're enjoying it and you're performing well, then, of course, opportunity to return is definitely there. Cool. That concludes the end of our session. But I do see there are a few more questions that did pop in. The first one being, do you hire from abroad? The short answer there is absolutely. We look for many different language speakers, as been touched on previously. So yeah, particularly French, Spanish, Italian, German, Dutch, Danish, Swedish, Norwegian. We're currently looking for these language speakers for our 2025 classes. But yeah, generally language speakers as a whole around the world. Obviously, we have offices in our APAC region who also look for different language speakers. And of course, in Dubai, another offices, they look for Arabic and of course other English speakers. And then one question here. Would like to know more on roles that indulge with data analytics and strategy. Do you expect from candidates who are starting their first experience in such a sector? I'll let you take this one, Ben.
Yeah, 100%. So I'd say we probably look to employ people from all sorts of backgrounds, different studies, and we're not particularly particular over what skills you're necessarily bringing in. A lot of it is behavioral aptitude and sort of your general approach. But I'd say we do have data analytics and strategy teams who's a slightly different sort of, I guess, like track within the business. For our client service team, what I would say is whilst analytics and sort of data competencies are helpful, they're certainly not going to be a big part of your day-to-day. I think a lot of softer skills around negotiation, prioritization, time management, communication, etc., are going to be the real sort of determinants as to how successful you are in that role in working with your clients. I think as you scale into managerial or vice president roles, data management, strategy, financial planning, etc., and thinking more operationally, it's probably a slightly bigger part of the role. That's not to say that it's not a feature, but certainly we don't have huge expectations in terms of people coming through, and you're not going to be developing your hard skills nearly to the same extent as you will some of your soft skills within the client service team, as I would say.
Absolutely. For any roles related to that, I would definitely recommend going to our website. Everything that's live is on there. And we did have another question come through. I think this is definitely more relevant for you again, Ben. Do you create a pool of paneled experts of upcoming technologies? Are there predetermined channels used to reach out to new subject matter experts?
So I guess, like, if I understand that question correctly, I think it's sort of suggesting, are we, I guess, proactively recruiting people to meet potential future needs of our clients and build out our network as best as we can in that regard? To an extent, we are, yes. We have a portion of our business that's looking to hire, sort of bring in and recruit senior execs that are standing down from major businesses and trying to get ahead of the curve. We're always, watching market trends and understanding what's hot, what's going to be coming through, obviously through public news, but also potentially what could be coming to market in 2 to 3 year times. And trying to build research around, again, long-term potential and what our clients may be looking into. But the reality is that the bulk of the research and the recruitment that we do is relatively reactive based off what our clients are wanting right now. So we have such a high volume of projects and sort of searches that come through from our client base that very little time is, I guess, afforded to anything too forward-looking, rather than, again, getting exactly what we need in now. That's especially the case on the client service team and the role that I'm on. Again, we then have slightly more sort of strategic outlooks and other sort of adjacent teams that are looking more towards the future around, if you look at everything that's happening at the moment, for example, with the tariffs, we have our research team, a number of people proactively interviewing a number of different industry experts across all sorts of verticals and sectors, so that our clients can digest transcripts and information around the potential repercussions of what's going on in that space, as well as AI and a number of other sort of like leading trends within the global markets. But I wouldn't say that we have yet, as I say, the resources or the time necessarily to go too far beyond what's happening right now, because again, there's such a high volume and it's such a competitive sort of market for that.
Great. Okay, cool. Well, that's everything from our side of things. Thanks so much to everyone.
Yes, thank you very much, Ben and Olivia, for such an insightful and practical session. And also thank you for everyone who joined us today. And it seems like there is one more question.
What advice would you give to an international student in the European Union who wants to be part of your team? Good question. I think what we're sort of like, more broadly looking for, I would say, is, obviously language skills are valuable, but evidence of one sort of like really having sort of push yourself or test yourself in client-facing and high-paced environments. So again, that doesn't have to be office work necessarily, but that could be in hospitality. There's a number of different sort of environments where you can find yourself in that sort of high speed, sort of unpredictable nature of working with people and providing a high quality service. But otherwise, more broadly, I think it's evidence of having pushed yourself, worked, had setbacks, learned from them, and really developed and grown your capabilities in yourself as a professional or a student or whatever it might be. And like real, evidence of having succeeded, tried, failed, and set goals for yourself, and really, been ambitious in whatever you try to do, whether that's professional, extracurricular, or within your studies. And I think like a real sort of keenness to, as I say, work with clients, interact with people, build relationships, and communicate consistently. Because if you don't have an appetite for that, it's not necessarily going to be the role for you.
Yes, see, we have so many engaged students, and that can show already that how valuable this insights and the practical sessions that you provide to the students. Thank you so much for our speakers, as well as thank you very much for every students that who attended this. And we hope you are walking away with valuable takeaways and learn how to prioritize effectively. So if you are interested in exploring opportunities, as Olivia suggested, of course, you can go to AlphaSights website to check it out. At the same time, you can go to the virtual booth on Global Fair to check it out, AlphaSights virtual booth. And that being said, the EFMD Global Career Fairs continues. So make sure to check out the upcoming webinar at 4 p.m. CEST and focus on building a sustainable career with Schneider Electric. And thank you again for everyone, and enjoy the rest of the fair. Bye for now.